You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone and welcome to the final episode of the Scottish Football Show Extra for 2021. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We've got a Rutherglen Glencairn special in this week's episode. We're delighted to be joined by the Rutherglen manager, Willie Harvey. Willie, it's a pleasure to welcome you on the show. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Scott.
It's an absolute pleasure. I look forward to this one. And we're also joined by one of the star men at Rutherglen, Jack McIlveen. Jack, it's a pleasure to welcome you on. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure.
It's a pleasure. It's been Before we get into talking about the season, before we get into talking about the football and things like that, can we first just say, Willie, it's great to see you healthy and on the show. It's been a difficult few months for you. How have you been?
In fairness, it's probably more difficult for my family because a lot of the time I really didn't have a clue what was happening. But, when I come out here and you find out what sort of things were happening, you realise it was a lot more serious than I knew. But no, brilliant. It's great to be back. 99.999% back to normal. Just a wee bit more and I'll be there. Just still going to take it a wee bit easy, but no, I'm fine. I'm perfect.
Brilliant. Delighted to hear it and delighted to see you back. Jack, how good is it to have Willie back after the few months he was away? Obviously, it must have been different for the dressing room with the manager not there.
It was different. Obviously, Gaffer's not there, but obviously Joe was there. Joe's the number 2, so obviously Joe's similar to Willie in terms of demands the same stuff and that, but a big miss.
Willie, how good were the coaching staff and obviously the players kind of binding together during that time to get things right on the park?
Well, I think it shows by the results that they've had. And Joe and me has been together since away Blantyre days. In fact, I was coaching at Glencairn when Joe Price was a player at Glencairn at South Forward. We actually go back, and a lot of people, although they call me the gaffer, everybody at the club knows that me and Joe are basically one and the same. Joe's got as much say in things as I have. It just comes down to it. Sometimes if somebody's got to make that final decision, then that's when I'm the gaffer. But for want of a better word, myself and Joe are as close to a joint manager as you'll get, and absolutely no problem whatsoever knowing that the club was in safe hands with Joe and Hutchie and Stevie Aitchison. So that wasn't a problem for me, and I knew the players would respond to the guys because they're used to them. We've been together for a long time. The boys that are there know Joe, they know Hutchie, they knew Stevie Aitchison. So I've done a great job, and the boys have done us really, really proud.
Brilliant. Jack, before we get into talking about the campaign so far, what was it like for you? Obviously been off for a wee while on the park. How hard was it to get back into a routine before the season started?
It was tough. I was just buzzing to get back, to be fair, just training, playing friendlies and stuff, just couldn't wait to get back into it, you know what I mean? So it was tough to start with that, but after a while you were just happy to be back.
Well, before we started the season, we had you on the preview show and we basically asked you just what was the targets for the season, and you said staying up was the main thing. But it's obviously they're sitting 9th in the league, 9 wins, 3 losses, 8 draws. How would you feel about that at the start of the season?
At the start of the season, I could probably bit the horn off you for that, because the main coming into the turn of the year that completing the first phase of the season, and if COVID was to shut the league down again, then we'd be safe. Mm-hmm. So that's always going to be a positive. I certainly hope we don't get shut down because I'm not confident the squad of boys that we've got and the way they commit themselves. Very seldom we've got less than 18 people at training. Their turnout at training is absolutely second to none. The boys work really, really, really hard. They work hard on a Saturday. They've got their ups, they've got their downs, they've their bad days or good days, but no, I'd a bit in the hand off you at this point to be sitting where we are at this point.
Jack, what's been your overall thoughts in the league position so far?
I think we've done well. Obviously, it's a tough league, so we've grinded at results and stuff, and obviously I feel like we could have nicked maybe a wee goal here and there, but I think we've done well. It's tough, so I've done well so far, I think.
Wally, let's get into the start of the season. We'll start with your opening victory against Largs. How good was it to go off to a winning start?
It was a great start because Largs, I mean, we seem to, for some reason, end up doing it Largs most seasons at the start of a season, and it's always tight. We won nothing here or a one each, either way. But doing there that year, I thought this year, start of the season, we played really well. Totally dominated the game and deservedly came out the winners. It was only 1-0 up to probably the last 5 minutes, and Ross Smith, who was one of the other boys for the 21s at the start of the season, was with us, scored the second goal, came off the bench and scored the second one to finish the game off for us. So it was a really good start to get 3 points right away.
Brilliant. Jack, what was your thoughts on the opening day? Was it good for the dressing room to go off to a good start?
I never played the opening game, to be fair, but it was good start. You can't ask for anything else. So the boys were happy with that.
3 defeats after that against Meadow, Darvel and Pollock. Wally, are they kind of understandable given the quality of those teams? And was there any of those games you felt you could have done a bit better in?
We should have beat Pollock. We should have got at least a point at Auchinleck. Pollock's goalkeeper, Longmuir, kept him in the game for the first, and I'm sure Murdy, because Murdy actually said it to me, that we could have been out of sight by half time in that game. But boy, Longmuir, it was, you know, I mean, if I could have got onto the park to punch him, I would have. You know, he was outstanding. He pulled off 3 top class saves. We could have easily, before Pollock scored in the first 15 minutes, we could have been 3-0 up, and deservedly so. And I don't think we'd have lost it to that point. So disappointed to lose that, get 2-1 that finished up, I think. And Pollock players were actually asking at the side, long to go, asking the ref long to go. We put them under that much pressure to try and get the equaliser. So no, we've done really well. And against Auchinleck, you know what I mean, 1-0. And again, I thought we deserved at least a draw out of that game. At least a draw out of that game. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the Darvel game. Was a reason behind that. And Joe took charge, but the reports came from Joe was that Darvel played really well, really strong team that day. But it was two own goals, in fact, that day that cost us the game. But Joe said that up to that point, believe it or not, Darvel was the best team we had played in that group between Pollock, Auchinleck and Darvel. So to come out of there with no points was pretty disappointing. But if I remember rightly, I thought Kilwinning must have came after the Darvel then. No, definitely, the 3 games, to have taken nothing for the 3 games was disappointing. And that starts to give you a wee worry when you've went that long without points.
The run was ended with a draw away to Hurlford. Jack, Hurlford have been doing pretty well. That must have been a massive point against Hurlford away.
Aye, big point. It was one of the ones. We just wanted something at the game. I think maybe we'd about a hand off for a point in doing that, to be fair, in my opinion. So, aye, good point.
That 1-1 draw against Hurlford, and then that unbelievable 4-4 game against the Buffs at Rutherglen. Wally, we'll start with the Hurlford game. That's a kind of probably 2 even teams, I would say, in the scale. How big was that point? And then obviously that mental Buffs game. Where does that rank as a game you've been a part of? Aye,
definitely what the big one didn't tell you was he scored the goal. So he's missed shot there. He scored the equaliser. No, it was good to break the losing run. You know, and it was away from home. You could into Halford. Anywhere down in Ayrshire you could into. You know, most of these teams, you could down there knowing you've got a battle, and you know we were 1-0 down, and the boys could have quite easily, you know, let the heads that you down after the last 3 results. But as I say, all credit to them. You know, they rolled up the sleeves and battled, and the big fella came up with a goal for us. And I feel at the end of the game, 1-1 was about right. So I thought a draw in that game was the proper result.
Mm-hmm. Jack, obviously that 4-4 game against the Buffs, you were 4-1 down and brought it back. An unbelievable result. What was your memories of that game?
We started off slow, to be fair. I think we were 4-0 down at a point. No, I think at half time it was maybe 4-0, 4-1 maybe. And we were just in the change room, obviously had a nightmare, scunnered. And obviously we get our arse kicked, so totally buck up our ideas. So back out and just everything, basically every time we went up the park we scored, I felt. So I buzzing with that after the game.
Well, how big is it as a manager when you're kind of 4-1 down in a game like that against a proper good team and come back to 4 each at home? It must have been massive.
It was massive. The disappointing thing was the way we started and the way we played. You know, it was as if we gave them too much respect, and I don't like that. I mean, give respect to every club, whether it be the lowest ranked club in all the divisions, whether it be the highest. The players will tell you, I keep demanding and I keep pointing out to them, clubs like Auchinleck and Pollocks and that, they win things because they play at the same level all the time, no matter who they're playing against. You know, an Auchinleck will play the way against Pollock, the way they would play at a top game, and they would take that same attitude into down to away one of the teams for away at the lower division. You know, and people say that if, you know, going and beating teams 5, 7 and 8 and 9, 10 nothings is a lack of respect. And I say that's the opposite. So that's you showing respect to the team that you're playing, because you're giving them your full attention. You're giving them what they expect, and there's no use saying, right, well, we'll take it easy because we're 5 or 6 up. And I think that's the way football should be, because I would take it as a disrespect if a team weren't giving me their full ability on a Saturday. And against Kilwinning in the second half, you know, as the big one just said, they certainly got it kicked at half time, and they came out and it was like somebody had just changed the two teams around, you know. And by the end of the game, Kilwinning were holding on, and we were actually praying to get a 5th goal, because Kilwinning done it to us a couple of seasons before. We were 4-1 up, and Kilwinning ended up beating us 5-4. They scored 4 goals in the last 10 minutes. So I was praying that we could have got the turnaround, you know, to sort of cancel out that experience. But unfortunately, we weren't able. But no, again, it's down to attitude, and their attitude in the first half was stinking. They know that, so I can say it out loud. Their attitude was absolutely stinking. But the second half, they showed what they can do, and they showed how good a team they can be. And as Jack said, it just seemed every time we went up the park we were going to score a goal. And so we thoroughly deserved that. In fact, to the point, I thought we had more chances. We could have probably got a victory to that game.
After that, it kind of goes on. He's gone a good run. The 2 wins against Benburb and Rob Roy. Obviously, that was Sammy's with a defeat to Auchinleck, but you were probably unlucky not to get something, as you've already said. The Benburb and Rob Roy games, Jack, they're obviously 2 big clean sheets away from home. They're good results to get, obviously, if you're to stay up against 2 teams who would probably be in the kind of similar thoughts at the start of the season.
Aye, big results. You just keep climbing up the table. If you're beating teams like that, that's the teams you'd expect to be maybe there or runabouts. Well, at the start of the season you would have thought that anyway. But aye, brilliant results. Just need to keep going.
Wally, what about the 2 results? Benburb and Rob Roy, do they stick out as big wins?
The big wins because they came after it. As I say, we hadn't had a win for a wee while, and we had draws, and we had played well in games and hadn't got points. Hadn't got the results. But down at Benburb, we went to Benburb, and I think Benburb fancied their chances that day. And quite honestly, we just basically outplayed them. And I think everybody at Rob Roy would tell you the same thing. The midweek game against Rob Roy, we just blew them right off the park. You know, we started really, really well, really strong, took our chances, and never felt under any threat during that game. You know, and I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was comfortable that day. And getting 2 results back to back that without losing goals gives a boost. Confidence is there. Cleans you up the league. A couple of games like that, a couple of points, cleans you up the league, and all of a sudden, the training nights are different. you know. And that's the one thing, even when we weren't picking up the results, I still had the same commitment at training. But when you're getting victories, the training session is different. There's more fun in it. You can see there's more relaxing, because if you're losing points, you know the players are turning up at training wondering what's going to happen, what sort of session are we going to have, what we're going to do, are we going to be bursted, are we going to be doing this, we're going to do that, you know. So no, the boys have done really well at the 2 games.
Jack, we'll go into that Kilburn game, the 2-1 defeat. Was that a tough one?
Aye, tough one to take, obviously, getting into it. Kilburn were down round about the bottom, so it was in our eyes that I must 3 points, in my opinion, anyway. And obviously we just went out and had an absolute nightmare, never showed up. So tough one to take, but you can't really dwell on it. You just need to try and push on to the next game and pick another 3 points up next week. So it was tough.
Wally, the 2 wins after that, Blantyre and Bonnet, and they're 2 games that you probably felt you probably should have won. Were they obviously another 2 big wins against teams kind of that bottom end of the league?
Again, in fairness, that's at that point Joe was running things, because I was in hospital at that point in time. But you know, reading up to that, you would expect, we would hope to win the games. We'd be looking at the games. If you're looking at the games through the season, looking at places where you hope to pick up points, and I never say expect to pick up points, but hope to pick up points. We would certainly say Bonington. We'd hope to pick up points there. And Blantyre, which was my old club before I came to Glencairn, we were looking, because we beat them earlier on in the season. Plus, they had a dip in form. They had lost a couple of games, but they had just beat Cumnock in the cup. Yeah. And I'd been up and watched them, and it looked as if they might have turned the corner a wee bit, because they played well that day against Cumnock and deservedly beat Cumnock 2-0. I had went to watch them rather than go to our own game. To say at that point, Joe was in charge; he was running things. So we were playing Blantyre, and I said to Joe, well, "I'll just go and watch Blantyre and see how things are and what's what." But massive. That these are the games that we've got to look at. You've got to look at all the clubs running about you. Mm-hmm. You've got to look at the clubs running about you, and you've got to keep taking points off of them. That's where you survive. You can't really afford to drop points to clubs who are maybe hanging on to your shirt tail. You want them off your shirt tail. You want them to leave your lane. You want to put as much space between you as you can. And that was the two wins were big wins.
Jack, would you go along with that for the dressing room? 2 big wins.
Aye, 2 big wins. As Wally says, as the gaffer says, just 2 big wins. Teams that we would hope to beat. So, aye.
The one was the Glenafton result, one of the sorest ones of the season, Wally? I know obviously you weren't there, but a 5-1 defeat at home is never good, is it?
No defeat at home is any good. You know, I mean, I keep telling the players, you've got to fight for everything, and if anybody's going to beat you, then make sure that you can walk in after the game, look at the mirror, and look yourself in the eyes. And I think it's fair to say, as I say, I wasn't there. I was still hospitalised at that point. Yeah. But I think it's fair to say, speaking to Joe, that there's no many of them that day could have walked into the dressing room and looked themselves in the eye and said that they'd given everything. Keep telling the players you can have a bad game. Says everybody has bad games, but there's no excuse for lack of effort. So if you're having a bad game, then you've got to make up for it by working harder. The ball's coming off you, you're mishitting the ball, and you're making mistakes. It happens. It happens at our level of football. It happens at every level of football. But you've got to make up for that by putting in the work, by working really hard and try to help as best you can. But when you've got maybe 8 or 9 players on the day that just wasn't working, and fairness, what I'm like to believe is, I know it was a case of Glenafton scored every time they come out of the park, and we had a few chances. And Joe said to me, he says, in fairness, it actually could have ended up 5 each. He says, or it could have ended up 10-0. You know, that was the sort of game it was. I think it's one of the games you've just got to bury it and move on.
What was your first game back after your
Nielsen?
Nielsen.
It's as I say, it's not a case that I'm back yet. Mm-hmm. Joe and Hutchie are still in charge. Yeah. I came back onto the dugout a wee bit sooner than I was expecting to, because Stevie Hutchison, I keep saying Stevie Hutchison for some reason, Stevie Aitchison moved to Cumnock which we were expecting and we seen it coming. So I spoke to Joe and I spoke to Hutchie, and we agreed that I would come onto the bench, come into the dressing room, and just basically be a sounding board. You know, they two were still picking the team. They were talking to me about the team. Joe always kept me in touch about his team selections and all that, but it was all down to Joe. Joe was the gaffer. So I basically just came onto the bench and there as a sounding board. Another set of eyes who somebody misses something, somebody sees something, somebody picks up on something. And that's basically why I ended up back on the dugout at Nielsen. But at this point, Joe is still the gaffer. He's still running the team at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm. Jack, what went wrong that day against Glenafton?
Just never showed up, mate, to be honest. Just had a nightmare. Just thought, I don't even know how to explain it, to be honest. It was just, sometimes you just get days like that. Just need to forget about it, move on to the next game.
Mm-hmm. Jack, we'll start with you for this one. The Clydebank defeat and then the 3-3 draw with Bees. Clydebank, obviously, it's one of the top teams in the league. Were you unlucky that day, Jack, not to get in at the game?
Aye, I feel we were unlucky. It was a pretty even game, I'd say. And then obviously we scored. It was just after half time. So obviously when we scored, we were thinking we could grab 3 points here, and we held out and we done well. It was just maybe last 10 minutes, man, we were starting to get tired maybe, and to be fair, it was 2 well taken goals. So obviously, one was the ball in the box. It was just maybe just switched off for a wee second. But their second goal was a well taken goal. So it was a gutty, to be fair, that we dropped the 3 points, but we felt that we should have got something with it.
Wally, when you potentially at the end of the season, when you look back in this run, the 3-2 win over Rossvale, the 3-0 win away to Blantyre, and the 3-3 draw with Bees, could they be 7 massive points at the end of the season?
Absolutely. I mean, especially the point to pick up at Bees. You know, you're 3-1 doing it, and you're on the 88th minute. The game's finished as far as everybody's concerned. But as I say, that's where I've got to applaud these set of players. They don't give up. They don't give up. You know, and it's something we've tried to install into the team. It doesn't matter how long the game is running, you keep going right to that last whistle. A game's not always 90 minutes. Sometimes a game is 95, 96 minutes. So if you give up and you stop, then you'd be as well not actually starting for the first minute. You've got to take it right to the death, and you get your rewards. And that they got the rewards that day, you know what I mean? And they actually could have got a 4th goal right at the end when a cross came into the box, and they were unlucky to get in the end of it, and they could have actually won the game 4-3. You know what I mean? So no, that was a massive point. No disrespect to Rossvale, we were probably looked upon and expected to beat Rossvale that day. They just no longer had a change of management. So these are points that, as I say, the teams are about us doing in that area. We need to be beaten. We need to be taking points for.
Jack, another comeback win, a comeback point against Bees. You love a comeback, don't you?
Aye, that was mental that day, to be fair. Just didn't stop playing at the final whistle, so everybody I think it was two crosses into the box, two headers, basically the last minute. So it was a surprise, but must have deserved it in the end. Must have deserved the point. So,
Wally, there's obviously a 2-1 defeat to Troon, and then 2 big wins against Bees and Cumnock. They were your last 2 league games nearly a month ago. It's been crazy how it's worked out. But again, 2 home wins against Bees and Cumnock, they're massive wins, aren't they?
They're great wins, it's, you know, I mean, and again, it was down to how hard the boys work, and it's like in training. We tell the boys at training, you know, when you're doing your runs and you're doing your sprints, don't sprint and then pull up 5 yards, 10 yards away, because you do that on a Saturday. You take that into a Saturday, and it's something we try to install in them. And I say the work rate, I really can't praise the team enough about their work rate, and that's, I mean, we've no individuals in the team. I mean, other teams that we have played have got individuals, but the best thing, the biggest compliment I can give to my side is, are a team. a bunch of boys who work really, really hard for each other, you know, and they're there for each other. And as long as they keep doing that, they'll get the success that they deserve. And as I say, the Beef game, the Cumnock game, that was all just doing to really, really hard work and putting everything into the game. And again, if I remember rightly, it was last minute winners again, come back just at the death, right at the final again, which is always good, because if you're a team that can do that, then you know you're never out it.
Mm-hmm. Jack, what is it about this team? Obviously scoring late goals to get big results. They 2 wins against Bean and Cumnock are massive.
That's it. We just don't stop to the end, to be fair. To be fair, I think we do a lot of running and that in training, so I'd say we're a fit team, so we don't really tire out or anything, so just push, don't stop to the final whistle goes, and sometimes a bit of luck's on your side. Mm-hmm.
That's obviously the league for the time being. We'll touch a bit on your cup campaign so far. Before we get into talking about the cups you're a part of, the junior cup, Wally, how hard was it a decision for the club not to take part in that?
Well, it was a decision basically taken between myself, Joe, Hutchie, H, and the committee. You know, and we felt that it was just putting too many games on the table, you know, and so we basically felt that we owed our allegiance to the West of Scotland League, because that's the league we had moved into.
Yeah.
You know, and don't get me wrong, the Scottish Cup was a massive pull, you know, especially when you realised that it was a possibility that you could go far away in it. And when I look at where things are sitting now, with all the clubs that are in it, then I would have liked to thought we would have been one of the teams that would have been there or thereabouts, you know. But we decided that it was just too many games too soon, so we decided to go along with the Demolition Cup as our route towards the Scottish Cup seniors, you know, and I think it's been the right decision.
That obviously Demolition Cup, what was that like to be a part of?
It's good. You know what I mean? It's basically it just keeps you working away, and in effect it can take you into the Scottish Cup. I mean, we're in the semi-finals here, and it can go either way. It could, anyway, but if you win this, you've then got a round robin against the South and the East, you know, and that gives you the option of playing in the Senior Scottish Cup next season, you know, as long as you meet the criteria, you know. And basically we are already trying to meet that criteria, be getting our licence anyway, but we felt, well, if we don't get the licence in time, this is the other option to get in. And it's been a good cup for us, and we've done well with it. Good results.
Jack, what about the South, the 2-0 defeat to St Anthony's? Was that a disappointing result?
It was disappointing. Obviously, you want to try and go far in the cups and stuff, so it was hard to take. I wasn't playing that day, to be fair. I think I wasn't well or something, but it was hard to take. You know what I mean? But you just as I say, it's like sometimes just doesn't go your way, and sometimes you just don't show up. So it happens.
Wally, the Kelly Pie Cup's obviously the West of Scotland Cup this season. You've got off to a winning start against Finnart. That was a good Friday night win. Aye,
it was. You know, we actually had Finnart in the first round of the Demolition Cup earlier in the season, and up to half time they gave us a real run for our money. There was nothing each at half time. We eventually ran out 5-0 winners. So when we drew them again, we knew that they would look for a wee bit of revenge. You know what I mean? Because they've got a good proud history for back in their amateur days and that, before they moved into the leagues. So we knew that we had to be up for our game, and we started reasonably well. You know, we contained them. We didn't feel as if we were under really any threat, and then we scored reasonably early on. I think it was maybe for 15 minutes, and I thought, well, we'll move on from there. If we get a second one, I think maybe a possibility for that. I'll think, well, we're not going to beat them because, you know, they've been here longer, blah blah blah. But we didn't take chances, and come half time, and told players, look, just keep going the way we're going, you know, and make sure we get a second goal. But it didn't work. It doesn't always work. Best plans don't always work out that way. They came out, and for some reason we sat back and allowed them into the game all of a sudden, and we found ourselves at one each, you know. But after that, we upped our game a wee bit again. Harry Mitchell scored an absolute terrific goal.
Yeah.
I think they must be sick of the sight of Harry because he scored a terrific goal against them and all in the other cup. And then we finished it halfway the penalty. So all in all, sorry, my dog's just arrived in. Come here, you. All in all, it worked out well for us. It was a good victory.
Yeah, definitely. Jack, how good would it be for the team to get a good wee run in that cup?
I think it'd be brilliant. It's always good to get a run in the cups. And obviously, I know in the Scottish Cup or anything like that this year, so it'd be good to go far. I think it's the West of Scotland's a big cup as well, so it'd be nice to try and go far, innit?
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch a bit on your careers before we get into obviously the quick fire round. Wally, you had a established playing career. What was your kind of memories of your playing career?
It's probably the Scottish Cup final, playing for Petersall against Pollock. Well, not the best memory, to be honest with you. The goal I lost because I was playing in goals, and I lost a really bad goal. It was a goal that I should every day of the week I would have expected to save, but it was a tremendous experience. Hot summer's day, two Glasgow rivals, Pollock and Petersall. We were the top teams in the West at that point in time. Pollock had put out Auchinleck, we had put out Cumnock in the quarterfinals. First game was one. As I say, the goal I lost was. It used to be on the start of Scott Sport every Sunday, and used to nearly choke my dinner every Sunday afternoon watching it. But that would be a memory. We went to the semi-final and played in the Wednesday. There was a great crowd. It must have been about 30,000 at Hampden. We played in the Wednesday night, and basically on the day, Pollock were a better team that night, and they beat us 3-1, and deservedly on that day. First game we were the better team. Second game they were the better team. They took their chances and won the Scottish Cup, but that was a great memory.
Who were some of the best players that you played with in your time? There must have been some good characters back in the days.
You people like Big Ian Young, called Tatty, who played at the back, who was the captain of Petersall, captain at Persia. When I played at Persia, he was actually best man at my wedding. And you had a striker who, even to the day, he still looks as if he's only 21, is wee Andy Daly, and with Pat Daly and Jimmy Lindsay. Jimmy Lindsay had the fit to die for. But the unfortunate thing for us is we had a wee player, David Gordon, who played for us in the midfield, and this boy was a genius. The boy's foot, he was absolute. He's the best player I've seen in junior football, as far as I'm concerned. And the week before the cup final, he got clattered at training.
Right.
And he was at the cup final, and he definitely would have made a big, massive difference to us. No disrespect to whoever played in his position. But we had some real good characters, as I say, we also had good laughs and strong characters. But as I say, we Andy Daly, Tatty Young, Jimmy Lindsay, brilliant, outstanding.
Jack, what about yourself? What was your kind of early days before you got into the boys' clubs and all that? Who were kind of some of your heroes when you were growing up?
Henrik Larsson, just all growing up watching Henrik Larsson play, for Celtic. So, Henrik Larsson.
Brilliant. As well, getting into the boys' club, when did you first get the kind of bug for playing football?
After that, I played since I was old enough to play, maybe 5 or something, I'm not sure. I remember obviously got in mini kickers and stuff as well, so I played since I was old enough. Played with Drumsagard, I think it was Stranraer to start with, Stranraer Boys Club, and then we changed to Drumsagard, and I was there for years. So it was
brilliant. Wally, was it always a plan to move into coaching when your playing days were up?
Aye, always had my eye on it, and I always thought, what would I do when it came to the point to stop playing? And I always said aye. And in fact, I actually probably went into it too soon. I actually went into it when I was 30-year-old. And I was, as a goalkeeper, 30-year-old was nothing. And I was playing at a good level with Petersall and things like that. And the opportunity basically came along. And again, it was down to Ian Young and Sammy Miller. That's a player, God rest him, who's no longer with us. Sammy Miller was the captain at Petershill. They took care of Petershill in the management side of things, and basically gave me a call to see if I'd be interested to come back and goalkeeping coach at that time. And I basically said aye, but I think it was because it was Sammy and Ian asking me, and whether it was the right thing, whether it was the wrong thing, I'll never ever know. But I sometimes look back and regret saying I should have played a bit longer, because without boasting too much, I was recognised as a decent goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
There was still clubs wanted to sign me at that point. And as I say, 30-year-old for goalkeepers, that's still baby age for a goalkeeper. But the pull for the coaching side of things was there, and I learned a lot as a goalkeeping coach watching the people run about me. For Ian Young, Ian had done his coaching badges and things like that, and he had a terrific knowledge of football. So it was always in my mind that I wouldn't step away. Whether it had been junior, whether it had been kids football, I'd stay involved at some point.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously getting into management, how much of a step was that, and where did you start that?
Started at Villa Clyde. I moved from Petershill. When I left Petershill, I went to Rob Roy as assistant manager with Bobby Gordon. And once we left there, I got a phone call from Bobby Crilley. Bobby Crilley was my old manager at Villa Clyde.
Right.
And heard that myself had left Rob Roy. Would I be interested in come down and talk to him? So Villa Clyde was one of my old teams. I played for them, and I went down and Bobby had been my manager. So I went down and that was me stepping into sort of the assistant manager. And then Bobby went to Lark Hall, and the committee at Villa Clyde kindly asked me if I was interested in being a manager. And thanks to Bobby had said to him, look, Willie's ready to go. It's time for him to be his own man now.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't get the job, if he don't give him the job, then I'll be taking him to Lark Hall with me. So the committee came to me and had a wee chat with my wife and things like that. And I thought, right, okay, I'll commit to this, because I had to make sure I was going to commit to it. It had to be, 100% or not, so, and it was going to be all my decisions. And I said, went for it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And then going to Rutherglen as well, how's that been for you, and which been your kind of favourite memory since you took that job?
In fairness, at Blantyre, there's only two teams that I would ever have left Blantyre for.
Yeah.
And that was Glencairn and Petershill.
Mm-hmm.
They're the two teams. If you talk to me in junior football now, I would say, I played for East Kilbride, and I played for Villa Clyde, and I actually played for Glencairn as well when one of my goalkeeper took an injury, and I played for a few weeks after that. But when Glencairn came along and with a conversation, and it was probably the hardest decision I'd ever made, because I'd been 7 years with Blantyre, and we'd won the league twice. Good working committee, had a great relationship with them. They'd done everything he asked for them, and to the point that it was probably the hardest thing that I could have done. And if it hadn't been Glencairn, I would have said no. I know for a fact that I said no. But Eddie Smith, who at the time was on the committee and all that, was in amongst the hierarchy of the committee. He spoke to me, and I went along, and had an interview with him and got offered the job. And as I say, I had a really, really bad sleepless night, wondering if I had done the right thing. Should I be staying with Blantyre? And one of the hardest things I ever had to do was to go up and meet Andy McDade, who I'd become really, really friendly with, and having to tell him that I was leaving and that I was going to Glencairn. But in fairness, he's understood, and there's still a lot of committee guys up there who I'm really, really friendly with, and I always, when I go back, I'm always received kindly, So that was it. That was it. And so Glencairn just gets in your blood, I think. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Jack, what about yourself? How much you enjoyed your time at Glencairn so far?
I enjoyed it. big time on my sons at the 21s beforehand, so obviously it's been a big step up. Obviously a lot of older faces and that, and a bit older boys, so I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Are you ready to put the spot? We're going to put you, since it's the last show of the year, we're going to put you both in the quickfire questions spot, and then we'll do the teammates with you. So
I'm crap at quickfire questions.
Same.
No. It's time to put you in the spot. Wally, are you ready to start? We'll start with you.
Right?
Van Bronckhorst or Postecoglou?
Coglou.
Who won the cup final, Celtic or Hibs?
Celtic.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Favourite film?
Favourite film? Oh, Jesus. There's a question. Oh, what am I thinking about? Eagles there. Were Eagles there?
Very good. Best manager played under?
Best manager played under? I would say Bobby Crowley.
In a normal season, would you rather win the league or win the Scottish Cup?
Win the league.
3 players from other teams in the Premier Division to join Glencairn, who would they be and why?
3 players? Oh, that's a wee bit hard. Well, he's not in the Premier League anyway. It was Dale Simeon I was going to go for. Geez, do you know, there's no, this is going to sound crazy. There's not enough of what I would change. Jay Mackay at Beef.
Right.
I'd love to have wee Jay back. I'd love to have wee Jay back. I'm just trying to think basically against my own players who I would think could come in and replace. And I'm going to be honest, there's no many that I could think. That's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? No, sorry, I'm not giving you any more.
Best player played with?
Best player with? Andy Daly.
Best player played against?
Best player against? Andy Daly.
Most embarrassing moment in football?
Scottish Cup final against Pollock.
Best friend in the who's your best friend in another manager in the league? So who would be your kind of, if you're looking forward to a game, who's the guy you can look forward to having a drink with after the game?
Not really sort of saying friendly wise, because I don't really spend a lot of time in the fraternity of the managements. But I would probably say I would be quite like enjoying with Tucker, having a couple of beers and having a chat with him. I would like that.
Favourite other sport?
Favourite other sport? Fishing.
Right, Jack, it's your turn to be put in the spot. Are you ready for these?
Aye, on you go, mate.
Daft question, Van Bronckhorst or Postecoglou?
Postecoglou.
Who won the cup final on Sunday, Celtic or Hibs?
Celtic.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Favourite film?
Step Brothers.
The biggest question of the night, who's the best manager you've played under?
William Harvey.
Would you rather win the league or win the Scottish Cup?
The league.
You can pick 3 players to be a teammate with you. Rutherglen, who would it be in the Premier Division?
It's a hard one. I don't really know MD, to be honest. Alan Miller at Dal was a good player. John Kelly at Kilburnie. And I've not got another one. I don't know, to be honest.
Best player played with?
Anton Finn.
Best player played against?
Anton Finn.
Most embarrassing moment in football?
Had a good few, to be fair. I know I have, but I can't remember any. One try at Queen's Park. Obviously, on trial, man, went to a penalty shout, and after that, I had a penalty. Basically, passed it right to the keeper.
Favourite other sport?
Boxing.
Who's the best friend you've got in another team in the league? who's your kind of pal in another team?
In the Premier League?
And around the West, who sticks out? It doesn't need to be the Premier Division, just any team. Who's a good pal for another team?
Anstey
at Petershill.
Right, okay. We're going to move into the teammates round. This is where we ask you both to stick some of the players at the club in, and who's the best, who's the worst, etc. So there's a few good ones here. Right, Jack, we'll ask you the questions, and then Wally, you can obviously chime in with if you agree or disagree with his answers, all right?
You what?
Right, Jack, you ready for these?
Aye.
Who's the best dancer?
Matty McGinley.
Who's the worst dancer?
Fraser Malcolm.
Who could be a future manager?
Dan Miller.
Wally, who could be a future manager? Who do you see a bit of yourself in that dressing room?
Is he spot on with that one? Tam Miller or McIlveen.
Who's the best trainer?
Is that for me or Jack?
Jack.
Don't know who's the best trainer. Tommy Owen.
Wally, why help him? Who do you think's the best trainer?
Good pick, but between Tommy Lone and Sean Maguire.
Jack, who's the worst trainer?
Craig Leach.
Agree with that?
Aye.
Who's the team hard man, Jack?
Scott Shonwell by a country mile.
Who's the most skillful?
Skillful, Harry Mitchell.
I would probably agree with that. Wally, would you?
Oh, aye, absolutely, 100%.
Quickest player, Jack?
Quickest player. Don't know who's the quickest player. Michael Owen, maybe.
Wally, who wins the bleep test at the training?
Tommy Lone.
Who's the slowest, Jack?
McIlveen.
Best character in the dressing room?
Don't know, probably between Kieran Coleman, Scott Shonwell, maybe.
Wally, who do you get a kick out in the dressing room? Who's a good laugh?
Who's a good laugh in the dressing room? I would say, surprisingly enough, Big McIlveen's quite witty, but it's in a dry sense. But I would say the other two, but they tend, Sconeville and Coleman tend to bounce off each other a wee bit. So, I would go with that.
Jack, who's got the worst dress sense in the dressing room? It's Christmas night out season. There must have been a few howlers.
Like Matty McGinley's Jack Miller's jacket he wore out, by the way. Shocking.
Well, is there anything in the team you've thought is a pretty bad dress sense?
A dress sense? Let me think. I've not been to any night shoot. I'm just seeing what shows up. Aye. At the Nielsen game, Coleman. Coleman turned up like Andy Pandy in a woolly coat.
Right, final question of the teammates round. Jack, who's the teacher's pet? Who's very close to the manager?
Dan Miller, captain, probably.
Wally, who do you feel is the closest to you in the dressing room?
Oh, a bit bad here. Closest? I think just because he's been raised the longest, I would say wee Sean Maguire.
Maguire,
He's been raised for 10 years.
Aye, brilliant. Right, this is the time of the show where we get some dirt on you for a couple of sources. They've not disappointed here. I've got this quote to read for Wally, and Wally, I think you'll probably know who it's from when you hear it. If I played a blind guy at cards, I'd tie his dog to a post to make sure I won. What's that? Where does that come from?
I think, I know where it came from, but I don't know who's put it on. It was Tony Fraser. That is up at Cumbernauld now, but that's who put it on originally.
Tell us that story. Where did that come from?
There was all quotes for all senior managers, like Guardiola and all that and all these stuff. And I went like that, and I just made a statement at training one night. I says, Poppy, that's my granddaughter's just walked in the room and all. I says, and I went like that. I says, well, I'll tell you what. I says, I want to win that much. I says that I would tie a blind man's dog. If I was playing poker, I would tie a blind man's dog to the table so that he couldn't win.
Can you ask Wally about the time he wore a dodgy pair of luminous green shorts in Mexico with a really weird pose in the photo?
Peter Ferguson. Go to be Peter Ferguson. That was.
I can't reveal the sources, but I was
on a trip in Mexico on a horse out in the water. Right. Peter Ferguson. That's going to be Peter Ferguson.
Jack, a couple for you here. Ask Jack about the Glencairn's 21 Scottish Cup final performance when he only got 5 minutes and his pals shouting from the stand that he's only on because they're winning in front of 1,000 people.
John Kelly, Aye, unreal. Aye, that was up there, embarrassing.
It's another one as well. Can you also ask Jack about when he made up the rumour about Defoe going to Rangers for 11 million when he was playing in the Champions League?
Oh, Jesus. Aye. Years ago, I was a wee guy, man, and my dad told me this unbelievable story, man, that Defoe was going to Rangers, and I went and told all my pals, stitched up a belter. I think it was Rangers were going into liquidation, and I'm shouting that at my pals.
Well, you've been around the game for a while. There must be some good kind of stories that stick out. Is there a particular dressing room story that sticks out in your mind?
Aye, I'm not going to name the player. It's when I was at Villa Clyde, and we were struggling. We were actually fighting relegation, and the players had been a wee bit down through the week and all that at training, and we were going to play Carluke. We had to beat Carluke to win, to stay promoted. So we're in the dressing room, and went into the dressing room, and I'm looking at the dressing room, and I really was concerned because the body language and everything was just done. So I've read the team out, and I'm trying to lift them and all that, and say, look, come on, it's a cup final, just we get a victory. I think Carluke won the league. I think Carluke won the league that year. So we were sort of basically third boat in the league, and Carluke were top of the league, and we had to be at the top of the league, and we had hardly won that many games all year. And so the players were a real downer, and I'll just stick them in. Rob Kerr, as they bred the team out, started all getting ready. Everybody stripped, so I've turned away, and I'm speaking to Big Rob Torrance at the time because he was my coach at Villa Clyde, and I'm talking away. Andy White, it wasn't Rob, sorry, it was Andy White. I was speaking to Andy White, and he just burst out laughing, and I went, "Are you effing laughing at?" He says, "Gaffer, you want to turn round?" I went, "What do you mean?" He says, "Gaffer, turn round." And there's Rob Kerr stoning, full bash, suspender, stones, and everything under a gear, and he's got ready and starts putting his strip on. I went, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm playing at the back." He says, and our striker's been scoring all season. He says, "So when he sees me, he might want to score with me." That was it. Everybody buckled, and we actually won the game 3-0 and stayed up that year. It was brilliant. That was the funniest thing I've seen. There's a couple of things that Peter saw and all, but I'm not going to go into them.
Brilliant. We'll take a look at what's coming up, obviously, and we're recording this on a Friday night. Obviously, you've got a big game tomorrow against Troon. Jack, the winter break's coming fast. How big would a win be tomorrow?
It'd be massive. You want to finish the year on a high, so it'd be massive, and I think a win would take us up a bit as well. So it'd be massive.
Wally, how big is that game tomorrow before the break?
Well, as I say, that a win tomorrow guarantees us, if the season went to lockdown, that would be us. We'd be still in the Premier League after when we come back. So it's massive. But I keep telling the players, we look up. We don't look at the players down the clubs down below us. Massive 3 points. Finish the season on a high. We've won 4 in a row. That would be 5 in a row. And I don't think we've ever won 5 in a row, because 4 in a row was the first we've done for a wee while. So 5 in a row would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch a bit on what's the plans for the club. Obviously, you have submitted your application to join the SFA as a member, and the stadium's obviously improves a lot and improvements to infrastructure. Wally, how kind of big is the next few months for the club to get obviously a bit of improvement in infrastructure and obviously that SFA membership that a lot of other clubs are getting?
It's not so much the next few months, it's the past couple of months. I mean, we've had people like Peter Ferguson who, without what he's done, we wouldn't be in the position we're in to go there. And then we're president, Elizabeth Allen, she was a lecturer at the university, a proofreader, and she's done a lot of the paperwork stuff that other people wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
The structure of the stadium, I mean, we've got one of the better stadiums in it. It's just some tidying up, some signage and all that. we had a meeting during the week there last Tuesday to see where we are, because we've got our first audit on January, say the 12th or the 20th, for our first audit, and we think at the minute we're probably 95% compliant, and we feel by the time the audit comes in, we'd expect to be 100% compliant. So we're pretty confident and very, very hopeful that this time next year we will be a registered senior team with the SFA.
Brilliant. Jack, how good would that be for yourself and the other players at the club to have they kind of big games in the likes of the Scottish Cup and things like that? How good would it be to see the club go in that direction?
It'd be brilliant. Obviously as a player you want to play against big teams and play at as high a level as you can, so it'd be brilliant, and obviously not only for the players but for the club as well.
Yeah, definitely. But we can only wish you all the best for the season ahead. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both on the show. Thanks very much for doing it.
You're welcome, Scott. Have a good Christmas and a good New Year.
Thank you very much. You as well. Thanks very much to everyone that's tuned in. Please subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels and follow us on social media. Thanks very much, everyone. See you soon. Cheers.